Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning for those who are, or very early good morning for those who are watching us from the Americas. Good evening for those watching us from Asia Pacific. Good afternoon already for those in Germany, like one of our speakers. My name is Mariana Castaño Cano. I am the founder and CEO of 10 Billion Solutions, Climate and Sustainability Communications. And I'm here in representation also of the PEEB program, the Program for Energy Efficiency in Buildings, which is the organizers of this event, kindly hosted by the NDC partnership. Our very deep appreciation to the NDC Partnership Pavilion for hosting this event today. We are going to talk about how do we go from target setting to implementation, from targets to action, nationally determined contributions driving sustainable buildings solutions. From submissions of NDCs to real action, to the implementation on the ground, discovering how the nationally determined contributions are shaping the future of our green buildings is the key of this event, but furthermore, the key of a new paper published a few weeks ago by the PEEB, which is available on the PEEB website, and you can scan this QR code. We leave a couple of papers around here so that you can go and dive into the paper. So this analysis has found out that 80% of the nationally determined contributions, which are the climate action plans by countries, are addressing buildings, but they don't do it all in the same depth. And we need to really understand how countries foresee the transformation, because we are talking here about a deep transformation of the built environment in order to abate this big energy intensity of buildings and construction, and Jonathan will let us know more about that. The program for this event has been changing in the last hours because we are in the last 48 hours, basically, of the COP, and agendas are very busy and they are moving. So some of the foreseen speakers couldn't be here with us today, and we want to thank those who are stepping in on their behalf. So thank you, everybody, for being with us. We understand that the situation is, as always at the COP, right? Very tense, and people are called in emergency to some meetings. So we must go on as we can. So our speakers today, I'm going to very briefly introduce them to you. If the colleagues in the technical side are so kind to show the people who are connected, who are basically these people, but it's better if we can see them on screen. So we have Heidi Aisha. Heidi is representative of the Green Buildings and Sustainability section of the Ministry of Public Works and Housing of Indonesia. Hello, Heidi.
Hello, Mariana.
Thank you for being with us. I guess it's very late for you, right?
Yeah, it's 8 p.m. in
8
Indonesia.
p.m. Well, thank you, on a Sunday at 8 p.m. Thank you. We have from Germany, Anna Zinecker. Anna Zinecker, who is a program officer, advisor at the Program for Energy Efficiency in Buildings. Anna, good afternoon for you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to be with you.
Thank you for joining us. And also we have to say good morning, early morning, I guess, to Michelle Farrer. Michelle is Senior Operations Officer at the IFC. Michelle, good morning.
It's good to be with you. I was just on the ground there about 30 hours ago, so still on the same time.
You are in Canada, right, if I'm not mistaken?
No, I'm based in Washington, D.C.
You are in Washington, D.C. What time is it over there?
That's a good question. I think it's 8 a.m. this morning.
Okay, so we have 8 a.m., 8 p.m., 5 p.m. here. We're covering the globe. And last but not least, our speakers who are in person, but not for long, because Jonathan is taking a plane tonight. Jonathan Duane. Jonathan is Program Officer at the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, the Global ABC, that has a very nice pavilion, one floor up, and which activity has been very intense. Jonathan, hello.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so we need to put it on. Earlier, I was told not to touch the microphone, so I didn't dare doing that. But yeah, good evening, I think. No, it's already
Yeah,
5
it's already
p.m.
evening, right? It's almost
I'm
dark.
still almost, yeah, it's been a tough, long week.
Tough, yeah, almost over for you. Thank you for reserving your last engagement for the PEEB. Thank you for that. And last but not least, we have Daphne Frank. Daphne is Senior Climate Coordinator at the GIZ, at the JIZ. Hello, thank you. Thank you for being with us, Daphne.
Yes, hello to everybody here in the room and outside in the globe. I'm really happy to be here on the panel.
Thank you, Daphne, for being with us. And without further delay, we are going to dive into that paper published by the PEEB very recently, Buildings in the NDCs, Mapping Targets on Buildings in the Nationally Determined Contributions. And Anna is going to present the key findings, the key analysis. Anna, the floor is yours.
So, great. Yeah, wonderful to be with you here today. I have the pleasure, and I know you're all tired after a long COP, but I think we really want to take that opportunity to talk with you about the NDCs today and what they could do for action on buildings. I think the COP is slowly, reaching its climax, going to the end. But after the COP, I think we'll be, at the point where we really have to talk about implementation and really kind of roll up our sleeves and do what we do best and continue with that. And so I'm going to take you for a really very short spotlight on what we found out about what the NDCs say already today about buildings. Because this was an issue, I mean, it was discussed for a long time. NDC is very important climate tool, really important for climate action on buildings, which represent 37% of greenhouse gas emissions from energy, so a huge topic. But no one could quite tell us what's inside. And so this is really what we tried out to find out. We set out already quite some time ago, took on quite a chance, quite a challenge to actually look through all the NDCs and really find what's written there on buildings. And I'm going to take you on a little tour to do that. So just really quickly, who am I? My name is Anna Zinecker. I work for the Program for Energy Efficiency in Buildings. We've worked for 5 years already, together with the French development bank AFD. So I'm employed by GIZ, and we implement a program together which aims to, do nothing less than transform the building sector through financing, policy, and capacity building. And our vision is to really reach, on the one hand, a zero emissions, but also resilient building sector. So what do we do? So as I said, we really plowed through all the NDCs. So there's we looked at 194, and we had young architects, young researchers working on this, and they really looked at each individual one and looked for the real targets on buildings. And then they put it all into one giant Excel, which we're very happy to share with researchers, because we think it's really important that we build on this. And what we did then is that we classified them. So we looked at kind of the content, what's written in there, and then we put them into, on the one hand, mitigation, adaptation, and also cross-cutting issues. But we also looked at subcategories. So we wanted to see, is it only, buildings? Is it just changing light bulbs in public buildings, which is important, but it's not going to transform the entire building sector? Or is it really things on building codes, certification, or like much more wide-reaching, let's say, activities? And we broke that down, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. And we also looked at cross-cutting issues, especially the question of is it backed up by finance, or does it mention finance, and does it have quantitative targets or specific points that it would highlight? And yeah, and you find that report on our website. You also find the entire compilation of all NDCs clustered by sectors. So anyone working on adaptation, for example, you're most welcome to have a look there. I think it's going to be very enlightening. Okay, and our main finding, and I was so happy when that came out, was that already now 87% of NDCs do have targets on buildings. So I think this is like a very a powerful finding. We really see countries do want to address the building sector, and there's really a drive for this. We just need to see kind of, do we have the right targets, or what is needed actually to even increase that. All right, and I think no surprise, but mitigation is the clear front runner. So we looked at all the NDCs and then we checked who has what, and we found out among all the NDCs that have building sector measures, so that's these 84%. And sorry, it's 84 because the EU is a bit difficult to classify, but that corresponds to our 87%. But yeah, so these 84% is like the total of NDCs, but we see almost all of them, so 80% have mitigation measures for buildings, so focus on mitigation. But very interesting, 53% of all NDCs already have something on adaptation for the building sector. So really, a very surprising and quite wide-reaching figure there. And then there's some that also have the cross-cutting issues. But then what we also saw is there is a wide difference in what is contained in these NDCs. So I'm just pulling out what we have on mitigation. And as you can see, I mean, there's 167 NDCs in total that have something. And the biggest group was actually energy efficiency in design, which was very interesting for us. I mean, it's really, it's not one specific aspect, but it could be building codes, it could be certification, and really kind of like taking a very comprehensive approach to the building in total. Then we, of course, had a lot of measures, a lot of targets on appliances. So that's the number of NDCs that mention the appliances, and even more measures. So I think every NDC has several ones. So appliances was a very popular one as well. Then we do have renewables, building materials, very interesting. Also here, very well represented. Could be targets on cement or kind of the production of other materials. Cooking was in there, and a tiny bit on renovation. So not that much, but there is some. Yeah, and I'm going to conclude with a little outlook to basically gear us up for our discussion. So we did see there is a lot happening already on buildings in the NDCs. Still, I think what we need to see now is how can we make the new generation of NDCs even more ambitious, even more measurable, and finance ready to actually have good targets that then translate into action. And I think that question of finance will probably come up in our discussion. Also, the question of how to shape targets. Yeah, and I'm very much looking forward to the discussion now. And I hope we can give NDCs on buildings a good boost today. And over to Mariana.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much for that presentation. And again, please go to PEEB.build and go to the publication section, and you will access the paper. It's also accessible via a scan of this QR code. Thank you, Anna, for that overview of the key findings and the analysis that you have undertaken. So now we are going to illustrate this approach to transformation through good planning with the intervention from Aisha, from Heidi Aisha. Heidi is from Indonesia. She is representing the Green Buildings Secretariat at the Ministry of Housing. Heidi, could you please let us know a little bit about the comprehensive policies on green buildings that Indonesia has included in its NDC? Heidi, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mariana. Greetings all. Again, I'm Heidi as the representative of Green Building Secretariat, Ministry of Public Works and Housing Indonesia. And maybe before answering the question, first of all, I would like to express our sincere apology that due to unforeseen circumstances, Mr. Fajar, our head of Green Building Secretariat, that's supposed to fill in on behalf of our director, Ms. Dian Irawati, is unable to attend this panel discussion. Therefore, in lieu of their absence, I will be doing this panel discussion. And Okay, and well, thank you, Anna, for giving us the overview of the report. Sorry.
Yeah, we could start, Heidi, actually, we could start with a quick reaction on the presentation from Anna, and then we can deep dive into the Indonesia's case. But what is your first reaction when you heard what Anna presented? Okay, maybe, can you hear us, Heidi? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And as for the quick reaction, well, first of all, thank you, Anna, for giving us the overview of the building in the NDC report. And it is very informative and useful to understand the current status and challenges in achieving the global climate goals, and specifically in the building sector and how it contributes to the NDC effort. So thank you again for showing us the report. And as for Indonesia, itself is well aligned with the trend and best practices that are already identified in the report. And we have prepared the green building implementation roadmap, which refers to the energy sector's NDC target and the mitigation NDC implementation roadmap. So it's pretty well aligned. And these are important steps to ensure that our buildings are energy efficient, resilient, and also, of course, sustainable. And we hope that this report will inspire more countries to take action and to collaborate with each other in this crucial sector. We also look forward to see more studies and like this in the future, and with update data and analysis that could help us shape our policy too. So thank you.
Thank you, Heidi, for that first reaction. Now let's continue with Michelle. Michelle, are you surprised? You're not? What's your take on the analysis?
No, so great. Thank you so much for having me on the panel. My name is Michelle Farrell, as introduced. So I'm working with IFC, which is the private sector focused arm of the World Bank Group. So immediately I loved the statement here where you said we need to be finance ready. The question is, how are we going to fund this transition? It's great to see that we have climate action plans moving forward, but we need the framework and the pathway to get people there. So this is what I'm really looking for as the next steps. Now that we have our direction, how do we move forward?
Thank you. Thank you for that, Michelle. Now we are going to hear from the room. Daphne, a quick reaction.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very important work which has been done really to review every NDC which exists and to have a closer look at it. And on one hand, I was positively surprised that it has been mentioned that 87% of the NDCs contain something about the transformation of the building sector. And I was not surprised about the fact that adaptation has not been mentioned as much as mitigation, but there's still a lot to do. I think in the building sector we have to look at both sides, mitigation and adaptation. So it was really interesting to see the different kind of figures and percentages of this analysis.
Thank you very much. And now your bread and butter, Jonathan, actually, from you, your commentary.
And I think it's great to see that, buildings are more and more mentioned, and that it's actually getting more detailed. So that's already a very positive trend. I was surprised to hear that energy efficient design is coming up as first, because, I think that's really the point that is the most important if you ask me. It's all about like how can we do more passive and how can we push for, designs where you need the least energy possible. So I think that's really important. The other part that I thought was pretty good is that materials actually comes up pretty strongly. So these are two things that I think for me were like nice to see. On adaptation, I mean, years ago already, I mean, you could find some actions on buildings on adaptation, but in the national adaptation plans. They were not appearing in the NDCs, but were already to some extent in some countries, because there are a number of countries that have always put adaptation more as their priority than mitigation. But you could find them more in the national adaptation plans than in the NDCs. So it's good to see them now also coming more strongly here, even if I agree, more needs to be done.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that the approach is more and more comprehensive to NDC. I think that from the initial NDCs, those prior to the Paris Agreement, to the update, to hopefully the new round of NDCs that we will see from now to 2025, I think that the quality and the ambition of these NDCs will grow and we will be more specific. Now, let's go back to Indonesia. Heidi, from your perspective, we know, because it's been reported by the analysis, that Indonesia has a very comprehensive approach to green buildings policy making. So could you please, in a nutshell, explain to us what is that approach?
Okay, thank you, Mariana. If you don't mind, we would like to share screen our presentation a little bit. And you see the presentation?
I think it's coming up. It says you are sharing the screen, but the presentation doesn't show.
Okay.
Now it does. Now it does. So great.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So first, maybe we go back to the commitment first. Indonesia government has stated that its strong commitment to reduce GHG emission, as stated in the long-term strategy for low carbon and climate resilience 2050 report. And with further exploration, opportunities to develop a fast-forward net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. In the midterm goal, Indonesia itself has announced its ambition to reduce the GHG emission through the Enhanced Nationally Determined Contribution, or NDC, by almost 32% without conditions and by around 43% conditionally in 2030. And as we can see, as we know, energy sector itself is one of the largest emitters in this country. And in Indonesia's NDC, buildings is part of the energy sector, as outlined in the law number 16 year 2016 and further detailed in the presidential decree 98 year 2021. And if we look the NDC mitigation implementation roadmap. So yeah, just like the report, our building sector is part of the mitigation, and it indicates that the building sector could reduce GHG emission by almost 9% with 1.91 million tons of CO2 for the commercial sectors and around almost 26 million tons of CO2 for the household sector. And so therefore, we believe that building plays a significant role in decarbonization effort in the energy sector. And for that, first, our government is actively disseminating, implement regulation policy, and also integrate programs to achieve those targets. And one of it is including adopting green building, or as we call it, bangunan gedung hijau, or BGH. And as mandated in our government regulation, BGH buildings must achieve minimum of 25% energy conservation and 10% water conservation, which if implemented in all buildings, that would help reduce the GHG emission significantly. And as part of our energy sector in the NDC roadmap, Indonesia's Ministry of Public Works and Housing has taken first steps to achieve this target, such as conducting green building certification, conducting capacity buildings through green building assessment training for professionals, local government experts, and civil servants, also composing and publicizing regulation, developing the green building database in our digital platform, and also assembling the green building implementation roadmap. And the Ministry of Public Works and Housing aims to launch its green building roadmap by the end of this 2023 that align with the Indonesia's NDC emissions reduction target in the energy sector. And this roadmap hopefully will contribute for achieving energy zero carbon emission in the building subsector by 2060. Yeah, so I think that's all from me. Back to you, Mariana.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. This illustrates very well how a country which has so much to build, because we saw in Anna's presentation that refurbishing is important in Europe, for example. It's a big chunk of the energy efficiency gains. But in many countries, like in Indonesia, a lot of new buildings must be built. I heard this morning you said, Jonathan, 70% of the buildings will be built that will be standing by 2050, right?
Yes,
70% is huge.
specifically Africa.
In Africa, it's really impressive. So the design phase is really important. But to make those buildings green, break the ground, we need support. We need finance. And we have two representatives here from the finance provider side. And I would like to understand with Michelle and Daphne's contribution how the support providers are getting ready, and how are you actually already providing support to the country so that they can plan and implement the green building policies. Daphne, if you want to go first.
Okay. Yes, the PEEB program has all. Is it on? Yes, it's on. Okay. The PEEB program has already been mentioned, so I'm very happy to announce that the PEEB program implemented by the French Development Bank, AFD and GIZ, is scaling up massively starting this year. So PEEB is a global program that aims to achieve a zero emission and a resilient building sector. And what we do is that PEEB supports our partner countries with financing for large-scale projects from AFD. And we as GIZ, what do? We focus on ambitious policies and skills for green buildings. So we give, on one hand, technical advice, and on the other hand, a lot of capacity building. So we complement each other in a very efficient way. So just to mention one figure, in the last 5 years, we have already supported a finance pipeline of buildings projects representing 1.9 billion euros. So this is quite a lot. And so I think this approach proved to be very successful. So we combine really the efforts and we scale up with funding now from the Green Climate Fund and the governments of France and Germany and the EU Commission. So we are now going to work with 21 countries across the globe with 3 new funding windows and a total budget of 250 million euros. So I'm really particularly happy to hear from the Ministry of Public Works and Housing from Indonesia how they developed the NDC and how they were able to develop specific targets to the building sector, because we will be working together also in the PEEB project. And I'm very confident that with this program we can support also the priorities of our partners, and not to forget, very important to us, the needs in the private sector, because without the private sector we cannot move forward. Yes, this is so far to explain what we are doing in the PEEB project, very concrete in the building sector.
Yeah, thank you for that, Daphne. Yeah, definitely putting the money where the mouth is really important. 2 billion in the pipeline, and thanks to the Green Climate Fund support, many more good to come in the coming years. It's starting now as we speak. From the IFC perspective, Michelle, how are you supporting the buildings transformation, and what is the outlook of new ways of support?
Okay, great. I mean, I think it's great to hear what Indonesia is doing here with the codes, right? We're really looking at the leadership from the government. But to enable private sector transition, we need a three-pronged approach. So that is first, again, what we're seeing here from Indonesia, the government, whether they're providing some sort of incentives or regulations, but also creating an enabling environment for them to be enforced. So in some countries, we may have the regulations, we may have the guidance, but we don't have the pathway. The second path is also finance. There needs to be some incentive usually at the beginning, and I'll dive into our market accelerator for green construction, which is our partnership with the UK government, and how that works. Next, once the proof of concept is there, we find that if we are able to build the capacity and the skills, whether this is proving the business case for developers, ensuring there are skills in the market for technical staff, then once that holistic enabling environment is there, the market can really move from these targets to action. So one example that we have, again, the UK government partnership I mentioned, we have just increased another 36 million pounds to this program, and 24 million pounds of this will be actually concessional funds. So we use the concessional financing to blend to make the green buildings affordable. And then 12 million pounds of that is going to be for technical assistance and the EDGE green building program. So without the technical assistance, without the capacity building, even though we have the funds and the concessional finance, it won't be successful on the ground. So it's really interesting and important to look at this as a holistic system.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned, Michelle, the importance of the political sign, the signal sent by the policymakers to the private sector so that this is the way to go. And I think that from the Global ABC, again, this is the bread and butter of what you do at the Global ABC. Jonathan, you bring together the very diverse stakeholders ecosystem. You have the government, you have the private sectors, you have the research. And you also recently made an assessment of where do we stand, and you presented here at the Global ABC Pavilion some results of your assessment. Could you please let us know what is the status of implementation of climate action, and what is the potential of rebuilding a greener world with the NDCs that are coming up?
Thank you, Mariana. Vast question. I mean, we've been tracking progress since 2016. Our first report, I mean, actually 2015 was the first year where we're looking at the building sector. And now it's our 8th report that is going to be issued now in March this year. So we did a preview here at the COP just to update a little bit, okay, where do we stand in terms of trends? What we see is that actually, unfortunately, we have not really moved from 2015. So we're at the same level in terms of our emissions. And so the gap is really increasing between the path on which we should be and where we are today. So overall, I mean, there's been progress, but the progress is so small that actually the impact is not there yet on the transformation in, say, for the sector overall. I mean, in terms of emissions, we've increased more than 5% since 2015. So that's actually not so good, because that means we're increasing. And on the other hand, like if we look at the energy intensity, well, it only decreased 5% since 2015. So it's very low, and it's 15% higher than we need to be on track. So definitely a lot of work to do. And when we look at investments, I mean, the investments, well, they're currently falling. I mean, and when we say that, of course, it's very much related to what's happening in Europe, where like it's more difficult to get loans and all these things. So the construction sector is actually slowing down a little bit. And it's 39% lower than the needed value in terms of investment. So most of the investment still goes into basically brown buildings, if we can call them like that. It's actually less than 5% of the total investment in the building sector that goes to green or sustainable buildings. So there's really, if we want to move to scale, there's really a big change that is needed. In terms, if we look at policies, well, building codes, there's still a lot of work to do also there. I mean, a lot of countries in Africa don't have building codes yet, so no building codes at all. In a number of countries where they have building codes, they're far from being aligned with net zero targets. And we don't talk here about the part of adaptation that also needs to be integrated. And of course, the countries that are the most advanced, there are basically 3 building codes today that we can say they are aligned with net zero, and those are in Europe. So there's still quite a long way to go in terms of really getting, like I would say, the enabling environment in place that actually supports the work that others are doing to make this, this whole transformation happen. Looking at the NDCs, it's great to see more and more integration of the issue of buildings and more details, but we need more details still. And I think one of the challenges is more related to the fact that the building sector overall, it's very difficult in many countries for them to find the data. I mean, I've been working in countries where they don't know absolutely what their building stock is. If you don't know the building stock, then it's very difficult, of course, to make projections. So overall, I think there's really work that needs to be done also to help the countries getting the data and the information. Because in the end, when we are going towards, I think a lot of the financiers, what they want to see is numbers. And to make those numbers, we also need to have actually the information that can create the numbers that we put forward. And then, I mean, if I think about the NDCs, I mean, NDCs are critical, especially when we talk about climate finance. But I think, there's a lot of other finance. And, the finance that happens in the countries, it's actually through their national development plans, and it's actually in their sectoral plans. And if I'm a partner that goes in the country, I'm going to look at those plans and see how am I going to support the country. So I think it's very important also to actually integrate all these issues on buildings also in these plans at the same time, so that the public funding that goes to the countries actually also goes towards some of the activities that we identify. And there, I think roadmaps are really important. I mean, the roadmaps are a way, in a way, first of all, to bring all the people together, to understand where we stand, and then from there look at, okay, where do we want to go and what needs to be done to get there, looking at short-term, medium-term, so looking at the low-hanging fruits first. What can we do that is quick and that actually can yield the best results? And then having a long-term vision where we are very ambitious. But unfortunately, we cannot be ambitious from one day to the other. There are a number of steps that we need to go through. And I think what is really important overall is to be realistic. I think that it's very important when we do those things and we think about the actions that we think about very realistic actions first. Because otherwise, they don't get implemented. If we are too ambitious from the beginning, and we actually won't get the results immediately. So I think it's really important to see, okay, what can be done easily, fast, and then still have a vision that we want to be very ambitious. So it's important to be ambitious, but it's important to be realistic.
Yeah, definitely. Commitments on papers are not good enough. We need commitments on whatever, cement, clay, whatever we use to build our built environment. So you pointed out, Jonathan, some of the challenges. So I would like now to illustrate that from a country perspective. I would like to see, Heidi, what are the challenges that you are facing in Indonesia to go even further in the planning and implementation of green building policies? What are the main obstacles? Are they financial obstacles? Are they capacity building? What are they?
Okay, thank you, Verena. Okay, as for how to increase our ambition in the NDCs on building, we believe that collaboration and also strengthening the policy will be a vital role in increasing ambition in the building sectors. And maybe if you don't mind, I would like to share screen again. I think I have the perfect slides to show. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, very well.
Okay, so regarding regulation, yes, we already have some that regulate the building itself, but still, unfortunately, green buildings are not yet explicitly included in our National Medium-Term Development Plan, or as we call it, RPJMN. And we believe that RPJMN will be the one that enable us to make this holistic enabling environment with and we are currently trying to integrate the green building implementation program into the new RPGMN to make green building implementation as one of the national priorities. So therefore, if we succeed to integrate it, we hope that it will open more opportunities such as the climate funds and also integrating with other programs. And yes, we also believe that collaboration matters. So in the end, collaboration would be the one that sets our ambition further, whether collaboration between the government itself, between our ministries, or between the government and the private sector. Maybe that's all for me. Back to you,
Thank you
Mariana.
very much. And it looks like everything was scripted from Jonathan's point that we need the national development plans to be aligned with the ambitions from the green buildings perspective. And then Heidi, that brings that out of her heart, a slide on that. This was not prepared, but we see, that from the global ABC that you understand what's happening on the ground. And from a provider, support provider perspective, what are the difficulties that you see on the demands and the projects that come to you and that are not eventually ready, finance ready?
Yes, I think we should have a look at two gaps. One is the ambition gap and one is the implementation gap. And of course, there's also a financing gap. And with regard to ambition, the new NDC cycle gives us new hope so that the building sector can be included with more specific targets. Yes, we have to assure that all the study can be used also to bring the building sector further and to be more ambitious, but not only to be more ambitious, to very quickly to go into action, to build up new buildings, to renovate buildings, and to move forward the whole building sector. And but this is a huge opportunity together with the buildings breakthrough, which came up during the COP, to move forward the building sector in the new NDC cycle. And on the other hand, we have the implementation gap. How are we going to implement this? There's a lot of lack of capacities and of financial resources to prepare and execute the national climate action plans when we talk about climate action. And we really try to strengthen these two parts. And what we need is a more holistic approach, not only focus on one specific element of the building sector. We need to focus of an integrated in an integrated manner of different kind of elements. And yeah, I think the PEEB program could support all of this and to share these international experiences to target on technical and financial assistance at the same time.
And Michelle, from your perspective, from the IFC perspective, what are the needs that you identified and that could, like the low-hanging fruit, what are the needs from the countries that you think could be more easily satisfied if some gaps will be breached? What are the sticking points there that you find could be easily overcome through
Right. So
collaboration?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing here is we at IFC, we work in the emerging market sector. And what we need to do is help these markets leapfrog past the brown building period, right? So how do we get them as they have that economic growth, as these needs grow for whether it's housing or new buildings, we need to make sure that we are not financing brown buildings. I'm happy to say that IFC does not finance brown buildings. We make sure that all the buildings that we invest in are green, and that would be a great thing to see from the development banks to make a commitment to do this. And unfortunately, of over the 230 billion of green private debt financing that was made available in 2021 for construction value chains, just 10% of that went to emerging markets, and most of that actually went to China. So we need to make the commitment. We need to make banks take this on board that we're not going to be financing brown buildings anymore. And particularly, I just want to add on adaptation financing. This is a big challenge here for us as well. So most of the finance for adaptation is currently coming from the public sector, and we need more private sector finance in this area. I was at an event earlier this week and heard one of the heads of, I think it was EBRD, say that when investors do not have the data available on what to invest in, they overestimate the risk and they underestimate the opportunity. And this is really where organizations like Global ABC, by providing that data and collecting this information where these opportunities lie, we can then leverage that to become a much better investment opportunity, whether that's on adaptation, whether that's on green buildings, whether that's on retrofit. How do we make this a great opportunity for investors? And I think this is what's going to help us go quickly.
Yeah, thank you. We need to dream big, right? And kind of stop inertia to keep us doing what we are used to do because of the inexistence in some cases of building codes forcing us to do better, right? So thank you very much, Michelle, for that. Thank you very much, Daphne, also for your perspective. Now we are going to offer the possibility to the people in the room if there are some questions to ask questions to our panelists. And if there are no questions now, I would like, we are almost at the end of this COP, right? COP28, it's 2 days away from its outset. They have promised, the presidency has promised an early closing of the COP. Let's see how it goes. But it's pretty certain that there will be a lot on energy there, on renewable energies, at least we know, and on energy efficiency. And this will have somehow to cascade down to the policy making on the ground. What are your expectations? So I'm kind of putting you on the spotlight here. So what are your expectations after what you have heard in this event and throughout these 2 weeks? What is going or what should happen in 2024? And let me start with Heidi from Indonesia. What is your hope for 2024?
Okay. Thank you for the question, Marina. As for the 2024, in terms of our target, Indonesia itself in our green building implementation roadmap actually already divide our goals into 3 terms. The short term, that will be in the next year, midterm, and then the long term. And maybe if I could share screen again to explain what we would expect in next year, if you don't mind. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for next year, we actually make our target achievement based on implementation zone, and we will be focusing on zone 1 and 2, which are the Java and Sumatran region. We choose that region due to its population distribution, energy, water consumption, and the green building implementation experience. And yeah, we will occur it in stages from short term, medium term, and long term, and we will be doing it in phasing as the roadmap said. And additionally, we are also targeting specific short term achievement. Such as establishing tools for the green building BGH certification that will be integrated into the building management information system, our digital platform, and also develop curriculum for vocational and higher education, increase public awareness by promoting the green habits in daily life, and support green building implementation through technology and innovation development. So that will be our focus in next year, and hopefully all of it could be implemented. Back to you, Mariana.
Thank you. I think my question should have not been what's your hope for 2024, because actually you have a plan. So having a plan is so much better than having hopes for the future. Thank you, Heidi, for that. Now let's turn out to Michelle. So Michelle, what do you expect? You just left COP28. From what you heard here and what's coming up in terms of goals for finance, for mitigation, for adaptation, for renewables and energy efficiency. What do you hope next year will bring, or it should bring?
I mean, what we know, IFC has just released a report, Building Green, Sustainable Construction in Emerging Markets. And if decisive action is taken in construction value chains, we could see by 2035, if we met these NDCs, a 3.6% reduction in global CO2 emissions. So this is something, if we follow through, we are going to be successful. Again, just what do we need to bring in the private sector? What we need to do is work on projects that can implement policies, get that regulation going, but also become attractive to private sector financiers. And this is really the key. We need to use the concessional funds that we have, thanks to the UK government and other entities, to use that finance to prove the business case for green buildings so that we have both private sector and government-enabled transitions as we go through in the next upcoming years. And I do think it is possible. We just need to work together and move both the private and public sector along these steps.
Yeah. Stepping up collaboration. Collaboration matters, as Heidi said. Daphne, from your perspective, what should happen in 2024?
Well, it's always a huge question, but I really hope that the buildings breakthrough is going to really break through, right? So I hope that there are going to be a lot of more national programs that give incentives to the private sector to invest. Yes, I hope that there are going to be a lot of methodological research and other kind of approaches to really to be able to calculate emission reduction in the building sector in order to move forward, to show up and to really highlight what has been done by a national program to really reduce GHG emissions. And I really also could say that GIZ is committed to explore how we can support, to contribute, to give it this extra push also for the NDCs to become more ambitious in the building sector.
Yeah, definitely. So next round of NDCs due in 2025, we really need more ambition, because all the reports from UNEP and the UNFCCC are showing that ambition is not at the level it should be. So now the word for finishing this event is coming from the co-organizers of PEEB and the Global ABC. So let me turn to you, Jonathan. Your expectation, you have a lot of work coming up in 2024, more than usually your whole plate, but what do you expect from next year?
I guess a lot of work and a lot of expectations. No, but I think the buildings breakthrough definitely is, we launched the buildings breakthrough here. We're following this with the forum and
the forum in Paris in
yes.
March, 7-8 March.
Exactly.
In Paris, Global Forum on
and
Buildings
where
and
we're
Climate.
actually the ideas, well, here at COP we don't talk to the ministries that are in charge or more closely in charge with the building regulations. So the idea would be really to talk to them and to bring them on board, on this climate agenda. So that's one thing I hope that will help, like, in the countries also having those ministries more on board. I understand they have other issues that they need to look at. The shortage of housing, what do you think? It needs to be built fast and cheap because, you want to build as much as possible and you don't have that much funding. How can we actually get the solutions that you do affordable, low tech, but, sustainable housing? And that's hopefully part of the work that the Buildings Breakthrough will be working on. The other part I think is really important is, well, decarbonizing the materials. I didn't mention it earlier, but this whole idea of taking a whole life cycle approach to a building and really looking also at the whole materials part and all the materials and the construction that goes into it. This is a part of the emissions that we have not been looking at enough, and there is now, I think, more and more, consciousness about the importance of this. So there's starting to be important action. There was also a cement breakthrough. There's also an initiative on wood in construction that was launched. So I think that will also be a very important part of pushing overall the agenda. So collaboration, agreeing on, well, what does it mean actually to have the definitions on net zero buildings are different from one place to another. There's still no agreement. This collaboration between the countries should really help getting to a common kind of understanding of some of those things. And then let's not forget adaptation, of course. A final thing is that, under the UNFCCC, there's the Technology Executive Committee, the technology mechanism, and in the technology mechanism, they have in their work plan for this year that actually buildings and construction is also there. So they want to collaborate with us also. And the good thing is that, working through the tech, you can actually get a certain number of recommendations that will come in the text that will actually be proposed then for the COP. So hopefully we can manage to bring a certain important elements on the buildings in the COP text for next year, so that actually there's a stronger commitment from all the countries and then stronger engagement in this topic.
Yeah, definitely. I like to say that buildings is the next frontier after energy. So let's hope that energy is very well into this decision at the end of the COP, and that next year, as you say, building is not. It should be discussed in the high-level discussion in parallel to negotiation, but it should definitely be part of the texts because they are legally binding. So thank you for that, Jonathan. And Anna, I turn to you. Thank you again for your presentation from the working paper and your final insights and conclusion, and what do you expect from 2024? A lot of work, I know that, and your expectation. What are your expectations?
Yeah, thank you, Mariana, and thanks to everyone on this panel. I think it was really fascinating discussion, and more than fascinating, I think it really pointed to what needs to be done. I think there's 2 points that I take away, 2 large avenues. I think the one is that I think it was called the ambition gap, right? So that question, what is written in the NDCs, to really be comprehensive. I think we have a lot of interesting material looking at building design, building code certification, but then really also building materials and adaptation, I think, and expectations, right? Jonathan, I'm looking a bit at you. I think Global ABC has a great role to play here in terms of coordinating these efforts. But then we also really saw that focus on implementation. And I think that really became clear that there's quite a lot of asks for things to happen in the building sector. I mean, we saw how important it is to work on regulation and the policies in countries, and to take it out of the NDCs and into national development strategies to really move things forward. We definitely need data. So I think also in Global ABC, there will be more work on data. The Buildings Breakthrough will focus on data. Also with PEEB, we work on this as well with our partners. And I think that will be a very important signal, really, on the one hand to the public sector, but really also to the private side, because that's the only way how we can basically channel investments to where we need it. And I think we need the ecosystem. We need a lot of different pieces of the puzzle to work. The NDCs don't happen in a void. And I think 2024 will be a crucial year. We all have our work cut out. And I'm very much looking forward to continuing this journey with all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna, for your words, and thank you for organizing this event together with the Global ABC. It's been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank Michelle and Heidi and Daphne for also being here. I want to thank the NDC Partnership Pavilion, Jorge, all the technical staff for hosting us today. Thank you, everybody here in the room, and those who are watching online. I wish you all a very good evening. Those who are traveling, safe travels back home, and a very happy end of the year, and good energies vibes for a 2024 that it is coming full of hope for a greener future for everyone. Thank you, everybody. Bye.